Okay, fantastic. Well, as I said, welcome everybody. My name's Toby Story, not Karen Robinson, as mentioned. I'm going to run through Svalbard and Greenland this evening, just what's happening for SSV up there in 2025. But just before we start, if you're not familiar with Southern Sea Ventures, we're an active marine-based travel business, primarily focused on sea kayaking, and we do a bit of expedition cruising as well. We started out in Fiji in the 1980s. And Al, who set up the company, established the first kayaking programs in Antarctica, and not long after up in Svalbard. And we've now got, I think, around 25 different trips, 26 different trips on offer in 19 or 20 different countries. So it's definitely grown a lot since the inception 35 years ago. But I'm really excited to be talking about the Arctic, somewhere that I've got my first sort of taste of polar paddling, and an area that I'm really passionate about as a kayaker. It's a wonderful part of the world, but in terms of the experiences on offer there, I find it, quite a magical place. So we're going, I'm sure you can see my cursor here. We're heading up to Svalbard and out to Westgreenland here. So this is Disco Island, largest island off the largest island in the world. So Greenland's the largest island in the world, and Disco Island is the largest island off the coast of Greenland. So Disco Bay, Disco Island, and up into Umanak Fjord up here. And I apologise for any Greenlandic aficionados on my pronunciation. I'm not perfect. So north of Norway is Svalbard, Iceland here, and the island of Greenland just up here. So I'll just sort of start off with what we're doing up in Svalbard. It's a 12-day expedition, starting in Longyearbyen, so just in this area here, and we'll be travelling out and around, up around the top, and hoping to make a circumnavigation of the island of Spitsbergen, stopping in the north and the south. And it's a 12-day trip, including the hotel, ex-Longyearbyen, return to Longyearbyen. We'll be sort of what I call early mid-season, so the ice has really started to break up, so good access to the land, but still a little bit of pack ice around, which is just a really nice way. That's how I really like it. So hopefully there'll still be some good pack ice up in the north here, so we can get up and get out amongst the pack ice. And for me, that's one of the most exciting parts about Svalbard, is actually the spaciousness. So this particular photo I took last year, well, I didn't take, but I'm paddling there, was taken on our voyage last year. And we're paddling north, and the next thing you would be seeing, if you could see that far, is Russia. So it's a very expansive place, and a really great place to experience paddling above the Arctic Circle in the pack ice. The ship that we're using is the Quest. It's a 50-passenger vessel, ice strengthened. It was built actually for as a ferry for the Greenland coast, so it's perfect for polar conditions. And as I said, 50 passengers, so it's a really nice size, very intimate experience. There'll be around 20 or so kayakers, and then 30 or so others doing photography and general landing, etc. So everyone gets a really private sort of experience or intimate experience off the vessel. Easy on and off systems, got a range of cabins, all with private en-suites, great lounge areas, viewing decks, open bridge policy, of course, so you can come on into the bridge and sit there and enjoy the surrounds while we're moving from place to place. In general, we'd be looking to do 2 or maybe more landings per day, or outings per day, in the morning and afternoon. All of the hiking and shore landing, lectures, zodiac cruising and general ship cruising, and meals, of course, are included. And then we've got the optional activities of the photography and Kayak Plus, which is our sort of regular kayak program, and the Kayak Lite. Now, the difference between those two is that Kayak Plus effectively means you get your gear and your kayak, and you can come out paddling anytime you like. With the Kayak Lite program, we sort of designed that for people who like to mix it up and do a bit of the shore landing or spend a bit more time on shore, or maybe just want to come out a few times, effectively get half the number of outings that the Kayak Plus group would get. Does mean that you may have to share some equipment, so you might be swapping back and forth between some people, and also making adjustments to your kayaks on certain outings. And the photography, that's run by an expert photographer, Paul Holan. We do sort of pre-departure equipment selection, tuition, onboard lectures and tuition, and then also have private Zodiacs specifically for the photographers who are dedicated to photography. Those that are just taking photos, of course, we're happy to provide advice, and always there's lots of opportunities to take photos, but we do find the photographers might spend half an hour or more going around one little piece of ice because that's what they want to focus on. So we sort of give them a really unique experience and a lot of focus on the photography. So it's really for those aficionados or those really wanting to make that a big focus of their trip. Svalbard is a large part about the wildlife as well. So, we've got some really iconic species, and the chances of seeing them are really, really high. So walrus, polar bears, the Svalbard reindeer, which is endemic to Svalbard, slightly shorter legged than the other caribou or reindeer throughout the Arctic. Several types of seals, ringed seals, bearded seals, harp seals, etc. And also the Arctic fox, all very common. And of course, the polar bears is one of the big draw cards to the Svalbard area. So getting out into the pack ice and hopefully spotting bears on the ice would be a really great experience. And that's why that sort of time of year where it's still a bit of ice around, hopefully we can get into the pack and be on the lookout for bears up there. A large number of seabirds as well. So guillemots, the ivory gulls, kittiwakes. There are a few puffins, not many, but there are puffins there as well. So, but a really real diversity of bird life. And of course, in July, that early, it is, as I said, early mid-season, but generally most of these flowers will be out by that time as well. So a really good diversity of fauna, Arctic fauna flora on the land. And just flipping across now to Greenland, I wanted to start with these images because I think it really talks to the experience, which is on a sailing vessel. It's a slower experience. We have engines, but we will also get under sail at times, provided there's fair winds, which no doubt there will be. And it's a really, wonderful way to sort of, and almost a timeless way to experience the Arctic. This vessel is the Elsie, so 14 passengers plus guides and crew. And I'll go into a bit more detail on the vessel shortly. But so the voyage itself, the trip itself, I guess, begins in Reykjavik. So we meet the group in Reykjavik. We have a hotel overnight, briefing. If we've got some equipment to deal with, we might fit some equipment out there. And then we're flying over to Disco Bay across the Greenland ice cap, which is just an awesome way to start. The journey really, it starts in Reykjavik. So once you're on the plane, that's all part of the adventure. And just coming over to this smaller, more detailed map, Ilulissat is where we'll meet the vessel. And then the plan, of course, remember this is a sailing vessel and this is the Arctic, and we'll for sure have a different itinerary once on the day, and that's part and parcel with adventuring in these polar regions. But the plan is basically to come across to Baffin Island, around Disco Island, up into Umanak Fjord, into this system up here. And I'll just go across some of the highlights, I guess. The big highlight for me as a paddler, paddling in Greenland amongst the icebergs, it's really is quite something. There's a lot of ice in the area. We've got several large glaciers rolling straight off the Greenland ice cap, sending large icebergs out into Disco Bay and Uminak Fjord. And so lots of incredible opportunities for paddling amongst the ice. A lot of Inuit culture in the area. Obviously, there's quite a few small villages dotted up and down the coast, and we'll have a chance to visit some. This one in particular, this is Uminak up here. So the village in Uminak Fjord, and you can see the dramatic nature of the landscape up here. So this is a very rocky, dramatic fjord system with lots and lots of ice, and it's a very dramatic place. These images and these other images are all of Disco Island. As I said earlier, I think I may have mentioned earlier, it's the largest island off the coast of Greenland, which is also considered the largest island in the world. And Disco Island really is quite green. Like, there's a lot of vegetation here, so it's really, and it's much more gentle, a bit more undulating, still quite dramatic, but a good place to get off and do some hiking as well. It's a very much a volcanic island, and I really love coming to these places where you've got actually the contrast between the beautiful green vegetation, forests, if you will, and these large chunks of ice drifting through the bays. And the weather, these are photos of great weather, of course, but the weather is often very good. So it's not uncommon to have really nice conditions around these bays. On shore, again, we've got a huge diversity of flora. The dwarf birch is actually starting to get, a reasonable size. So you can be walking through something which is maybe knee high, and you've got to remember this is hundreds, if not 1,000 years old. Lots of gentle things on the coast as well for the hikers. In terms of wildlife, there are muskox in Greenland, and reindeer, Arctic hare, ermine, stoats, etc. There's quite a lot on land. In terms, I left this photo in here because I think this is realistic of the types of views that you're going to get of wildlife in West Greenland. It's not as, there's just not as much diversity in the wildlife as there is in Svalbard, and not as much concentration of it either. So but there are opportunities, but you really have to look a lot harder in Greenland than you do, say, somewhere like Svalbard, where things tend to turn up quite readily. However, there are a lot of whales, humpback and fin whales, minke whales, and of course lots of seals as well. The seals, you have to look for them. The whales are much easier to find, and I wanted to leave this one in because the opportunity to experience sailing on the small vessel under the midnight sun with the whales moving through the water is something it's very likely to happen. So it's a great opportunity to see whales up and down the west coast of Greenland. Now, the vessel itself, you can see it's got a mixture of twin and double rooms. They're all shared bathrooms. It's got a large sort of communal area and a good deck space as well. And I might just flick across here. So you can see some of the twins are double or twin, so you can twin share, or you can use the room as a couple with your partner. And the triples are actually quads, but we would typically only put 3 people into those rooms, into the bunk rooms. It's got a very cozy bridge area, so you can sit in here and get out of the wind and enjoy the transits while we're moving from place to place, of course. And here she is under sail, quite beautiful. Now, I just wanted to show just a little snippet of video, and I'll be honest, this is not actually Elsie, but it's in the area, and it's what we would expect to experience on the sailing component of it. So of course, while we'll also be under motor, so we do use the motor, of course, as well as the sails. We have at least 1 or 2 outings per day to land, to paddle, and then we'll be transiting via the sailing vessel. And I think, the movement from place to place is definitely an experience of its own as well. So, and this is very typical of the types of icebergs that you'd see up in Greenland, and they really are something spectacular. So I'll just flick across to the next slide here. Just by special request, I just wanted to put in just a little snippet on the Faroes. And the main reason I sort of wanted to mention the Faroes is there's quite a few people choosing to do the Faroes trip and then join our Svalbard trip, or do the Faroes, do Svalbard and then join the Faroes, because we've got those dates line up so that you can actually connect those trips. And the same with Svalbard, you can actually do the Svalbard trip and then travel across and do the Westgreenland trip if you chose to do that. So the Faroe Islands, we just completed our first trip to the Faroes where are we now? A few weeks ago. Great trip. They had, and I think I'll do a bit more in depth on that trip in the future. But just as a real snapshot, it's up here, just to the north of the UK, to the south of Iceland, and we're running those trips in late June and mid-July. So a real diversity in terms of the paddling opportunities, sheltered fjords, very open coastline, big cliffs, and of course exceptional opportunities for seabirds. It's probably one of the big wildlife highlights of the Faroe Islands. And I will just finish off with another video here. This is from last year, from our Svalbard trip. And I'm just going to let it play, and after this we'll go into question time. That certainly brings back some fantastic memories. I cannot wait to get back. I'll be back. I will be going next year personally, because, well, it's one of my favorite places. So just flicking through. So guys, I'll just open up the microphone.